Well, hello, friends. I am so glad to have you back in my kitchen today at Blue Rooster Farm. And as you can see, today we are making homemade pizza. It is one of our family favorites that we probably make at least once a month. So the first thing we're going to make is the crust. And I have 1 cup of warm water. Now you want to make sure that your water is not too hot. If it's too hot, it will kill your yeast. So just nice warm water, about 115 degrees Fahrenheit. As you can see, I added some yeast, and that yeast was bulk yeast, so I added a tablespoon of that. But if you don't have bulk yeast, you can use a package of regular active dry yeast. You also saw me put in 2 teaspoons of sugar. And that sugar is just going to get that yeast active and foaming up, and we'll know that it is in good shape when we put it into our mixing bowl. All right, the first thing I'm putting into my mixing bowl is my 1 cup of whole wheat flour, and there I'm adding about 1 cup of white flour. In that bowl, I had 2 cups of white flour. I also added 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and I'm going to mix those dry ingredients up just so they're all mixed nicely. And after about 5 or 10 minutes, we come back and that yeast is nice and foamy and activated. So we're ready to start making this dough. We'll pour that in. And to that, we are going to be adding some olive oil. We're going to add 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Then we're going to get this mixer going and see what we can come up with here. So I still have some flour, about 1 cup of flour in my white bowl there. I'll add just a little bit more to get it kind of thick, a little thick batter going in there. And after having it mixing for a little bit, I'm going to clean off the sides. And we're continuing to mix it. I've got it on I've got the video on fast speed so that we don't have to sit here and watch it mix. Added some more flour to it. And I can tell that it is starting to form a ball and cleaning the sides of the bowl. Now we're going to let it continue to mix. Again, this is sped up. We are mixing for several minutes and getting that gluten developed. So added the rest of the flour. And I even walk away for a little bit to let it continue to mix. And there we have a nice ball of dough in there, and it's cleaned off the sides of the bowl very nicely. As you can see there, I am spraying a large bowl with some pan spray. And again, we don't want to rush the dough. We want to make sure it is kneaded well. And what we're going to do is we're going to take that dough out, and it is no longer sticky. It's still moist and everything, but it doesn't just stick to, you can see with my hands there, it's not sticking to my hands. I'm going to shape it into a nice little ball, and then you're going to see me rolling it in the pan to get the oil on all the sides. And then what we're going to do is we're going to cover that and put that in a nice spot where it can rise for, probably 30-45 minutes. And while that's rising, we can clean up our mess and get the pizza stuff ready. Here we are back, and our dough has risen. I'm punching it down. And again, it's got a really good texture. It's nice and stretchy. And I've got some individual pizza pans that we're going to be putting it in today. Now, we have used the stoneware rectangular Pampered Chef pizza um, pans, and then also the round pizza pans that are stoneware, and they work really good. We just put some olive oil on them and a little bit of cornmeal and press them out, and that works great. But I recently bought these pans, and they're non-stick. They've got little holes in the bottom of them to let air come through so the bottom doesn't get soggy. And so I really like these. And so I'm putting a little olive oil on each one. And that's because I like the texture it gives the dough at the bottom. And these are nice because with my husband and I, we can share one of the pan pizzas and then eat another one the next day. And then I stick two in Ziploc bags and put in the freezer, and we can pull those out anytime we need a fast dinner or did not have time to cook. And there I've got cornmeal that I'm sprinkling on the bottom of those pans. That just makes the texture of them nice and helps them slide out of the pans really easily. Now, as you can see here, I'm stretching the dough, turning it into flat rounds, kind of like a pancake. And I am going all around. I'm kind of flipping it through my hands so that it's all even. And then I'm laying it down to let it rest for a few minutes. And then once it's rested, I pick it up and it's able to be stretched further so that it doesn't just spring back after I stretch it. So you can see it gets a little bigger this time. Just that resting helps it relax. And I was going to do one pizza and just show you how it's done, and that was going to be all, but I normally do all four at the same time because it's much easier to do, and so I opted to go ahead and just do it the way I usually do it. I'm going to put all of the dough in all of the pans and simultaneously put the ingredients on each pizza. So just putting the dough in the pan, stretching it out a little bit more so it covers the pan. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little olive oil on top of the dough, and that way as I kind of shape it into the pan a little nicer, it doesn't, it does that smoothly without sticking. But also because I have found that when I put my tomato sauce or tomato paste on the crust, it doesn't seem to get as soggy. So it kind of gives a little barrier between the crust and the sauce. So the next thing we are going to do is I'm going to open up a jar of my own tomato sauce, or actually it's a paste. It's not quite as thick as the paste that you would find on a store shelf, but it is from 100% tomatoes from our garden, and that's all that is in that paste. And I just divided that half pint between all four pizzas and smoothing it out. And like I said, it's 100% tomatoes and nothing else, no salt, no sugar, nothing. It is just cooked down tomatoes. So I'm going to add the seasonings to it here. This is garlic powder, and I'm just going to give a nice sprinkle on all of the pizzas. We like garlic in our family, and so you can put this on or you can leave it off. It is up to you. Next, we're doing some Italian seasonings and just taking a spoon and sprinkling it on each of the pizzas, trying to get it evenly distributed. Now this next ingredient is pizza sprinkles, and we get this at our Mennonite store, and it has some pepper flakes and some other Italian seasonings, And I think you normally would just sprinkle this on top of your pizza when you're eating it, but I like to put it with the sauce. Here I have taken out some basil from our freezer, and I'm putting a nice tablespoon on each one. Here's some parsley from the freezer, putting a little fresh parsley on each one. These frozen herbs have lots of flavor, and they really make your pizza. So if you have these on hand, they're great to put on your pizza. You don't have to have them, but we really like them. There's some pepper. We like fresh pepper on ours. And some salt. And here's some shredded Parmesan cheese. Remember, you can add anything to these pizzas that you like. Whatever seasonings you have on hand are fine. Here's some cheese, and I believe I was using mozzarella and Parmesan. So just giving a nice little handful sprinkle for each one. And we're ready for the meat. Here's some pepperoni. Just putting it on top. Again, you can use whatever toppings you want. You can use hamburger, you can use sausage, you don't have to use meat. You can use mushrooms, you can use anything you like on top of your pizza. This is what we had on hand, so this is what we're using today. Then I'm putting just a little thin layer of cheese because I'm going to now add another layer of meat, and this time it's Canadian bacon. We are meat lovers. And again, like I said, my husband and I will share one of these personal pizzas with a vegetable, and that will be our meal because they are pretty hearty. I'm putting a little bit more cheese. This is just a little sprinkle here. And I think I'm going to need to get just a little bit more, so I'm grabbing another handful out of the bag and putting just a little bit more on the pizzas. Now I like to do the vegetables on top of the cheese. That way they can get a little bit roasted in the oven. So here is onions, and we like our onions chunked up big. And they are sweet onions. Here's a few peppers, sweet red peppers. And they are from our garden last year. I just had them frozen and brought them out to sprinkle on the pizza. They work great for that. And then some black olives that we had. These are those black olives that we had left over from the chicken enchiladas that we made the other day. I told you I'd find a use for them. Now what I'm doing is I am getting a couple of, well, here's a little more Parmesan on top. Just finishing that off. And now I'm going to get a couple of cookie sheets. Oh, I'm going to use a little more pepper. And the cookie sheets are what the pans are going to be setting on in the oven. You could place them each on the rack in the oven, but I find it's harder to pull them out of the oven that way, so I just lay them on cookie sheets, and that way it makes it easier to get a hold of and pull out of the oven. So I'll put 2 on each sheet, and they go into a 425-degree oven that's already preheated. And after about 20-25 minutes, and the cheese is bubbly and the crust is golden, you can pull them out and they are done. The crust rose into a nice, thick Crust pizza. Cheese is melted. They smell terrific. These pizzas are better than anything you could get at your local pizza restaurant. You know exactly what's on them and you can make them exactly to your taste. Here I have one and it's been out of the oven for just a couple minutes. It's still steaming a little bit. Cutting it in half. You can tell it's tender, but the crust is nice and chewy. And you open it up. Cheese is moist, the inside's moist. These are absolutely delicious. I hope you try them and let me know what you think. If you liked watching this video, please consider subscribing. Thank you and have a great day.